Hello, Gubbdata seniors. Here's Mr. Mouse talking about DIGIORGANIZER 3, which I'm going to release this weekend as well. Just a brief look at the disk. You'll find DIGIORGANIZER 3. You find some DUGs, drivers, some examples, some legacy tunes, and some example samples. And you will also find Mibri's tune Roll In with the Mouse that he released in the other tune compo as well. If you go up a little bit, you will see the greatness is sufficient tune as well with a loader. That is normally you can also use DigiOrganizer to, when you're done with the module, just save it with a loader, and then you can just play it at another time without the actual editor. So there are some docs here as well, which you should be able to read at your leisure, where I try to explain everything that's going on with this new DO3. You can just read through it at your own time, but everything will be explained in here as well. Okay, whoops. So now let me load up DigiOrganizer. And here we have it, the new DigiOrganizer screen, DigiOrganizer 3 FM-YAM edition. So basically most of the work will be here. But before we explain all of that, let's just go to the sample menu and explain a little bit what changed here. So any bugs here, please report them for any other versions that I can create. But what I added here is that you can load samples like usual, but you can also load a set of samples and save a set of samples, just for easy, composing if you want to use the same set of samples for another tune. Also, you can of course look at the directory as normal as well, and then load the samples that you saw on that particular disk. Anyway, what you can also do is change the start and end page of the area you wish the samples to be loaded to. So normally you would just have standard A0 to D0, but by using the keys you can change the sort of the full range where you want to do this. So just to be aware that the editor is somewhere between 6A and A0, so you won't be able to load into that area. So let's just go down a little bit and let's say, okay, we want to load a sample from 3.0, and you will notice that it jumps because you can't go there. Okay, so any new sample will be now loaded from this into this area. So let's load a sample. I know there's a bass drum on this disk, so let's load that. Here you notice that it's going to load. You already see that in the bottom right through that 3.0 area. That's where it started. Okay, it loaded, so you can see on the top there's a sample from 3.0 to 4.1, which is the bass drum I just loaded. Now suppose I want to do something else. I want to load something else somewhere else. I'll just go back and say, okay, the next thing I want to load, again in the higher region of the memory. Let's go there. Let's say from A0 again, and I want to load my snare drum there. Let's see. Okay, you set this page to that and load. There's a snare on this one. It should be loading it to that area you just set. It should start. Whenever you just change that, any new sample will be loaded in the area. So if I load a new sample, let's say there's a hi-hat closed on this one as well, it will start adding to that list, right? So it loaded it from AB to AF. So now I've got these samples in the memory. And so this is the normal screen where you do most of the work. If you forget what kind of key to use, you could just press M. You'll see this full screen of all the keyboard shortcuts that there are. Now, normally you could use Ctrl-2 to go to the samples. So these are basically your instruments. And as I said, there is a sample, let me just double check, from 3.0 to 4.1, 3.0 to 4.1 end page, and the speed Now, just a tip for 8-bit samples that have been recorded at 8,000 hertz. To play them back at 8,000 hertz, 7B would be your to-go-to speed for playback. Yeah. Now let me see what we can hear if we do this. Well, that doesn't sound right. So this is because the DIGIORGANIZER starts up with the signed type of samples supported. So what you want to do, you want to load the driver for unsigned FM samples. Okay. I press Ctrl J. This is the one key you probably use for a lot of loading in terms of different types of files. And I know there's a driver FM and then 8-bit unsigned on this as well. Okay, now I've got the unsigned. You can see on the top left what the last loaded file is that you did. That sounds much better, right? This is another feature, by the way. You can just press space when you're here editing and change and listen to any change, right? So this is the normal speed that I would use. Just like normal, you can go to the track list where you have your patterns and the number of times you want this pattern to repeat before it moves to the next row when playing. Just Shift Enter to go into the pattern. I just added my sample. So let's play that. So left at the bottom you see speed. Using Shift A, B, C, D, etc. you can change the speed of play. So let's make it 2. Okay, let's go back to and get the new sample in for the snare that I add. Go back. A0, AB, AB, okay. All right. Okay. Go back. Maybe change this a little bit today. That's better. By the way, if you are in this pattern, you can just press F7 to play just this pattern a couple of times. Okay, let's just create another pattern for argument's sake. And I got this hi-hat close as well, so let's have that hi close. This is a B to, what was it, AF or something? Was it AF? Yes, it was AF. Let's see. Go back. And we'll add a few of these here. Okay. Now, suppose I want to use this, but change it a little bit. I'll just Control C this and Control V it here. So now I've copy paste. That wasn't in the original DIGIORGANIZER, right? Okay, now I can play the whole song. Okay, now suppose I have a long list of this stuff here and I'm editing this one here, and let's just for argument's sake go there, copy that again, change that a little bit, I don't know, to this, something like this, whatever. So now when I'm doing a lot of this stuff, maybe I just want to play this track from this position, right? So you use F2 to do that. So it started here now. right? You don't have to play the whole thing again just to listen to what you did here. You can just press F2 wherever the cursor is in this row. Do that. Right, so that's one thing. All right. Now let me explain something else from this. So you can load a SID, and let us just load a legacy tune. Okay? So these were 8-bit samples, unsigned. As I said before, the tool starts with the signed 8-bit sample driver, but you can load anytime something else, right? So let me just look again what kind of stuff we have. Yeah, so let's load the DLAME 93. So this is a module where you have everything in. You've got the samples, you've got the driver, and you've got the SID tune as well. And I'll show you later how to save that as well. Whoops, that's not how it's called. Let me double check. Did it say DLAME, right? DLAME for the SID. Okay. So now it's loading a legacy tune that was done originally with DIGIORGANIZER 1 or version 2 Lite or whatever you want to call those. So that uses 4-bit unsigned samples using the SID volume trick. Good. You'll see that it also changed the init and play address of the SID on the top right window, because that's saved with this module on the disk. So if I play now, you will hear the tune with SID playing the samples, and it's very loud. Go. Right. Now, what I want to do, I want to change this. I want the FM-YAM to play those samples. So I'll load the driver to do that. So load driver, FM, 4-bit samples, unsigned. And I'll use the fast one for this one. This is probably the only one which will be on the final disk anyway. And now when I play the tune, I see I have to change the speed here to 2, back to 2 again. So now if I save the tune, play the tune, sorry, you'll hear the FM-YAM doing the samples instead of the SID. Go. Now let's load another module. Let's do the darkness comes from, I believe it's from Fixoid. So this is it's also on a disk. This is already with the FM-YAM player. Just to show off the other feature that you have, because you can play the SID tune or you can toggle it off while you're just working on the digi channels. But you can also change the volume of the SID, only for those SID players that allow it, if they just have like a main volume setting and don't change it along the way. Then you can use that as well to just balance it a little bit if you want to listen more carefully to the digi channels, or you want to up the volume a little bit of the SID tune. Let's take a listen. Now using Q and W, I can change the volume of the SID. In this case, for this particular tune, that works. So now I have no volume. Yeah, it's just a handy thing to have if you need it, and it works with that particular SID tune. You can use it. I mean, if the tune is already using a lot of main volume settings continuously, it doesn't really work. And then let me explain the other thing there. So if you look at the play thing, it has track position and pattern. So when you're playing, you can see which row basically in this track list is currently playing, as well as the pattern that is currently playing. And that's no different than the original DIGIORGANIZER. So what else is there to explain? I think one thing that I wanted to mention is that you can save this. You can save multiple things basically. You can save the data as a module. So with a module, I mean there will be no space in between. They're just sort of chunks of files basically. So you will have the samples, you will have a SID file, you will have a digiplayer, and some additional information around that, which is saved as a block basically. So that's a mod. You can use Control U to do that, then you will save the mod. So if I would give a file name now, I would be saving it. If you don't give any file name, you just cancel the action. Okay. You can also save full, which means you will save this, whatever is being stored here. So yeah, a SID file, your samples, and your player, you will save that as a full memory file. You can then later you can use any cruncher or whatever you want to do with that and of course you need a player to use it, right? So that's just a full memory. Now if you're just editing a little bit and you just want to save meanwhile while you're editing, you can also just save the data, which I call saving data. Basically you will just save the memory which is stored to, in terms of patterns and stuff like that. So those are going to be small files. It's just really just the data part, which makes it easier to save and not have bulky files on your disk as well. And finally, you can also save, like I said before, with a loader attached to it. So a module will be saved as well as a loader for that module. So you can then just spread that or do whatever you wish with it, but you can listen to it standalone. You don't need this. This is where the exe info comes in place. So if I want to do that, first I go to, for instance, darkness, right? Whereas I think the song is called Darkness Comes. Then I use the asterisk key to set the author. I think it's Veekzoid. Should be. And then I can save this by Control Y. I can save the exe file. So let me save this as Darkness Comes, right? So now I'll save this, the SID file, the samples, the digiplayer, all at once. Nope, the other way, other disk side. So this is what you end up with, right? Darkness Comes with a loader and a module. This is basically the loading screen. Anyway, that's all. I hope this was useful as a sort of brief tutorial, and happy composing.